glass breaks, you can't just glue it back together. When a car crashes, you can't just press rewind. When a fire starts, you can't just put it back in the can. Fires affect many industrial sites across the country, costing $2.3 billion in damages and claiming over 200 lives each year. While your company may have fire detection and suppression systems in place to contain fires, effective fire prevention relies on you. Without the proper fire prevention training and preparation, you, your company, and coworkers could suffer damage, injury, and even death as a result of fire. In this program, Fire Prevention, we'll discuss the elements that cause a fire, proper preventative measures you can take when performing your job function, and how to respond when a fire breaks out. Three elements must be present for a fire to occur: heat, oxygen, and fuel. One incident can bring these elements together when conditions that cause a fire are not recognized. The ingredients for fire are abundant in the industrial workplace. Many tasks hold the potential for destruction if not handled properly. This is why a basic understanding of fires is so important. Fuel is anything that will burn when exposed to heat. It can be a solid, liquid, or gas. Look around your work area for materials that could be fuel for a fire. For example, cardboard boxes, pallets, paints, and gasoline. Next, determine what possible heat sources in your area could ignite materials. Common heat sources are freight extension cords, electric motors, welding torches, cigarettes, or byproducts from tools such as sparks. Oxygen is the third element of a fire, which cannot be controlled since it is always present in the environment. A fire can also build its own oxygen source through a process called convection. As heated air rises, cooler air containing oxygen descends, creating a wind tunnel that feeds the fire. As the fire is stealing the oxygen from its environment, it is also giving off toxins in the form of smoke and carbon monoxide and other gases. According to statistics, exposure to smoke and gases is the primary cause of death in a fire. As the fire continues to build in intensity, the heated air gathers at the ceiling and raises the temperature in the room until everything that is combustible bursts into flames. This is called the flashover point. Study the scene for a moment. What potential fuel and heat sources for a fire are present? The best way to fight fires is to prevent them from happening. The most effective method of prevention is to keep each of the elements of fire separated. Since oxygen is ever present in our environment, the two elements of fire that can easily be controlled are fuel and heat. Before you begin each task, perform a hazard analysis of your work area. Always consider the task being performed, the equipment being used, and the environment you are working in. Investigate your area for potential fire hazards and ensure that you maintain a safe distance between ignition-producing equipment and fuel sources. Good housekeeping is an excellent way to separate heat sources from fuel. Good housekeeping means keeping waste to a minimum, equipment well maintained, and an organized system of storage. It is a team effort that involves everyone's participation. A cluttered or messy facility not only increases the chances of fire, but it can turn a small fire into a major disaster. The more fuel available for a fire, the quicker it can get out of hand. Only materials necessary to perform the job should be present in your work area. All combustible material should be disposed of properly, preferably in metal containers. Keep all tools and machinery free of oil and grease buildup. Oil deposits on equipment can be ignited by a spark. Spills must be cleaned up immediately. Sorbents and rags used in cleanup should be disposed of in metal containers and removed from the building at the end of each shift. Dust presents both a fire hazard and a threat of explosion in the wrong conditions. Dust collectors with continuous suction power should be used to eliminate this hazard. Electricity is a common ignition source for fires. All electrical equipment must be inspected before each use. Check for faulty wiring. Make sure that electrical cords are secure and that equipment is in good working condition. Equipment should be grounded and switch boxes and junction covers closed. Never overload a circuit with multiple electric devices, and never store anything on top of circuit boxes. Keep electrical devices and motors well maintained and lubricated to prevent malfunctions and overheating. Cigarettes are another possible ignition source in industrial fires. If smoking is allowed at your site, be sure to use designated smoking areas and be sure each cigarette is completely extinguished and is properly disposed. Be aware of other possible sources of ignition that may not be as obvious. A static charge created from personal electronic devices like cellular phones have the potential of starting a fire. In areas where flammables are present, always use discretion with these items. Stored items should be stacked securely and should not obstruct fire exits, fire extinguishers, or overhead sprinkler systems. The separation of heat sources from fuel becomes even more important with specific hazards such as flammable liquids and vapors. These materials are so common in the work environment that they may be taken for granted. Flammable liquids include hydraulic fluid, gasoline, oil, electrical insulating fluid, paint thinner, chemicals, and adhesives. The danger lies in a liquid's ability to emit vapors that can be easily ignited. The lowest temperature in which a liquid will emit ignitable vapor, the amount of vapor needed to ignite, and the vapor's ability to burn without an outside ignition source all determine the classification a liquid receives. This information can be found on both the container label and the material safety data sheet. This classification sets guidelines on how a liquid should be handled and stored. Flammable liquids must be segregated in their own storage area. Drums must be properly ventilated to prevent vapor pressure buildup if exposed to heat, or the formation of a vacuum if subjected to cooling. Improper ventilation can cause drums to leak or rupture, causing an explosion. When dispensing from a drum, proper grounding systems must be utilized to prevent static electricity discharge. Safety cans must be used for the manual transfer of flammable liquids. Safety cans have a spring-closing lid and spout cover. They are designed to safely relieve internal pressure when exposed to fire. Federal regulations require that not more than 60 gallons of Class 1 or Class 2 flammable liquids, or more than 120 gallons of Class 3 liquids may be stored in a single cabinet. When flammable liquids are transported by forklift, special precautions must be used. If a drum containing flammable liquid becomes punctured or damaged during transportation, immediately stop and turn off the ignition. Get off the forklift and contact the proper personnel to begin spill cleanup procedures. Flammable liquids are easily ignited and burn at a very rapid pace. Some flammable vapors are heavier than air and collect near ground level, seeking an ignition source. They can spread rapidly over a large area because of their ability to flow by gravity and travel via air currents. Study the scene for a moment. Are there potential fire hazards present? Fires are classified by the type of fuel they burn. With Class A fires, combustibles such as wood, paper, or some plastics are the fuel. Class B fires are fueled by flammable liquids such as gasoline, oil, paint, or grease. Class C fires are electrical. Class D fires are fueled by combustible metals. It is important to know the classification of a fire in order to make the correct decisions when fighting fire. For example, the most popular extinguisher is the ABC extinguisher. This extinguisher is effective against A, B, and C classified fires, but is not effective against combustible metals. Instead, use a Class D extinguisher for this type of fire. Be sure to know and follow the site-specific emergency response procedures for your facility. Preparation is key for an immediate and effective response. You must know both your capabilities and responsibilities to make the best decisions in a fire emergency. Use an extinguisher only if you have received the proper training and authorization. If a small fire occurs at your work site, do not panic. First, assess the situation and decide if the fire can be extinguished. If you are trained and authorized, use the correct extinguisher to fight the fire. Remember, pass. Pull the pin, aim low pointing at the base of the fire, squeeze the handle to release the extinguishing agent, and sweep from side to side to prevent the fire from spreading. Know the range of the extinguisher and advance on the fire only as it is being extinguished. Always leave an exit. Do not let the fire get between you and a safe way out. Next, pull the fire alarm and move to a safe location to contact the proper authorities. You will need to provide information about the location of the fire, the size and intensity of the fire, and any other information that may be significant. Finally, evacuate the building to your assembly point. After using an extinguisher, be sure that the fire is completely out. Hot embers or dry combustible items can reignite. Remove burned materials when extinguished to the appropriate disposal location. The fire extinguisher must be recharged after use. Make sure the proper personnel at your facility are notified. Most fire extinguishers have a seal over the pin. If you find an extinguisher with a broken seal, report it, as it probably needs recharging. It is important to remember that all extinguishers have both a limited range and amount of extinguishing agent, and that they are only effective against small fires. If you are unable to extinguish the fire immediately, get out and close the door behind you. Never attempt to fight a fire that spreads beyond its immediate area. Know your evacuation route and alarm sound in case of a fire at your facility. Observe where emergency exits are located and report any that are obstructed or damaged. After evacuation, remain at the assembly point until you've been accounted for. Lives have been lost searching for someone who was already evacuated. Do not return back to your worksite until the all-clear notification has been sounded. Be aware of fire hazards at all times during your workday. Do you know where the nearest fire alarm, fire extinguisher, phone, and emergency exit are at your worksite? Know the answers to these questions before you begin your daily activities. Fire prevention begins with the knowledge of what fire is and your commitment to keep heat and fuel sources separate. Perform a hazard analysis before each task to ensure effective fire prevention. Practice good housekeeping in your area by keeping unnecessary waste to a minimum and keeping equipment clean and maintained. Use the proper care and procedures when handling flammable materials. Any source of ignition at your site should be recognized and respected as a potential fire hazard. Know where fire extinguishers, alarms, and emergency exits are located at your worksite. Also, know the correct evacuation procedures and the proper emergency response should a fire occur. Understanding your capabilities and responsibilities prepares you for unexpected incidents. Following these steps to fire prevention promotes a safe work environment. Protect yourself, your company, and your coworkers from the damages of fire through the best defense, prevention.